Hey Jeff, it's Scott. I thought I would just do this way, and that way you'd have some notes that you could review. Lisa will introduce both you and herself, so obviously you'll need to get this slide changed so that it reads with your contact. You then open up and talk a little bit about the different types of markets that there are, and I don't spend a lot of time on this slide. The key that we thought to this slide, Jeff, is to have a statement that acknowledges that while we're going to share some information about the Fairfax County market, which is where the majority of the ExxonMobil employees live, that there are people who moved into these markets at different times, that there are people that live outside of the Fairfax market, that the buyers that are coming to buy their houses most likely are not coming from the Fairfax market. So we're going to talk about it being a healthy and balanced and even maybe a hot real estate market, but that doesn't mean that everybody sees it that way, and that doesn't mean that everybody in this room is actually experiencing that. Then Lisa does her slide. Then this slide is a bill slide. So the real key, if you want to update this slide, I think you can. If not, I don't think the third quarter is way off, and it'd be a lot of work to rebuild the slide. So I hit this slide to make sure again that they understand that number one of the things that you would want to know, they can get market information by going to I forget what it's called, the Virtual Resource Center. So they have ExxonMobil has a virtual resource center, and any of the markets that these guys are living in, we have the statistics updated and posted there. Again, for today, since the majority of the people live in Fairfax County, we're going to give you an idea of what's going on in the Fairfax County market. Obviously, looking at what are the key statistics that you want to keep your eye on that'll tell you what the health of the market is. This shows obviously the inventory being down, the number of sales being up, and it's a comparison of the third quarter of 2013 versus the third quarter of 2010. I bring my laser pointer and I hit it. I know that's familiar to how you do your presentation. New contracts are up. Expired listings are down, and I hit that one and say, this is probably one that not too many people are paying attention to, and yet it's a huge indicator. This tells you how much unhealthy inventory is out there, or how many people are trying to sell their home and just aren't, are either upside down and it's not a possibility. So as we see improvement in this number, I don't think this is talked about enough. And obviously then the days on market. All of those statistics leading to what they want to hear, which is that there's really been a very nice significant price increase year over year of 8%, a steady increase since 2010, and a just general really good health in the marketplace. Then Lisa hits this slide. Then here I talk a little bit about understanding that we're starting to hit price, and I hit it by talking about, I asked them if anybody has started to look for a home down in Houston yet, and ask them, hey, have you used the internet at all to do that? And of course everybody in the room has. And I talk about the internet and say, guys, the internet's a fantastic place. It's where 93 or 95% of the people first engage, but it's very two-dimensional. No matter how many pictures you put up there, whatever you write. Basically, when you go to the first screen and you're on Realtor.com, if you don't press the advanced search button, it's going to ask you what zip code do you want to look in and what price range do you want to see. And those are the two questions that you're asked, and if you don't press anything else, it's going to start showing you inventory and things that you can click on. So, pricing is absolutely key. And when we talk about a price, we're mostly talking about what price is going to encourage somebody to put you on the list so that they come inside your home, because that's where they're actually going to write a contract. Very few people can really make the leap without being inside the house, standing in the community, thinking about what it would like to be living there. And that's when they get excited, and that's when they decide to make a strong offer on your property. So the price is about saying, hey, there's a bunch of properties that we're going to go see this weekend. Is mine going to be on that list? And that's what the price is really set for. You'll have to come up with your own things to say, but that's what I've been saying. Then Lisa will hit her thing. And then this we talk about, and there's two things that you want to acknowledge here. First thing you want to acknowledge is that in all the years that we've looked at relocation packages that have been put together, what ExxonMobil has put together for these employees is awesome. It's really one of the most competitive relocation packages that we've ever seen, and it's heavily incented for them to try to sell their house in the first 30 days. And there's actually a great, financial reward for them if they're able to sell their house, at a solid price and do it in the first 30 days. But there's also sort of the picture that you paint, and I've asked them and said, hey, if you go to Houston and I asked you as your realtor, hey, I have all of the houses that just came on last night and we could go see those, or I have a whole bunch of houses that have been on the market for 100 days and haven't sold, and I suggest that we drive around and go take a look at those. Show me your hands how many people would like to see the ones that just came in the market or the ones that haven't been selling. And of course they always say, hey, I want to see the new ones. And I say, if you were really looking for a deal, maybe the one that's been on for 100 days just reduced their price yesterday. But unfortunately, it comes with the stigmatism of this thing's been on longer than other things in the market, and there's something not right about that. So that's kind of where I go. We just want to make sure that they're understanding that their benefit package is incenting them to do it in 30 days, and then because of the days on market that we saw, if they get past 30 days, they're actually stale inventory, and want to make sure that they understand that could be a potential problem for them. Then Lisa will do her thing. This is talking about the virtual resource center that I was mentioning earlier. Then to go into financing, and I generally think, Jeff, what I've tried to do is you've got a smart group of people. The more questions that you can ask that lead to your slide, I like doing that. Lisa doesn't do it very often, and I think you'll engage the crowd better that way. But basically, most of these people have bought and sold a house, 3, 4, 5 times, many of them with a benefit package through Exxon, so they're not kids in the woods. You just want to talk to them and say, guys, a short-term pop in the interest rate can actually motivate the market. People feeling, oh my God, I've missed out on the opportunity. This thing's about to go through the roof, and I better buy. And I better buy now because I'll miss the interest rates. A long-term big increase in interest rates could have an effect where, some people would be priced out of the market, and some people that would be able to qualify no longer can qualify, and that could, eventually have a slowdown in the marketplace. I don't spend a lot of time on it, and I make sure that they understand that, nobody's able to predict it. What the important piece that is behind why I'm saying that is because they basically are wrestling, many of them, with the idea of saying, well, should I sell my house now and move into some sort of corporate housing and then buy down in Houston? Or, they're kind of going through these ideas in their heads. And so, you and I both know that's probably not, for whatever it is that they could potentially gain if they actually were able to figure the market out and time it right. It's not going to, if they add it up and start figuring out what it costs to move twice, what that does in the disruption of their lives, it's not really worth it. So, that's the picture that I'm painting. Your words will be different than mine, but I think just giving them some general idea, talking a little bit about how appraisals are having often an issue. So just because you've received an offer, the contract is ratified, doesn't mean that property is going to appraise. And think about what you would feel as a buyer if all of a sudden it doesn't appraise. Have your plan in your mind ahead of time. Work with your agent. make sure that you guys have a plan that, hey, God forbid this thing doesn't appraise and the buyer comes back to us. Let's be able to either say yes or no to what we will or won't do before that happens to us, because we don't want to make those decisions in a moment where it's emotional and a lot of pressure on us, and we don't want buyers sitting around waiting for us to answer in a time where they're feeling emotional and thinking about maybe wanting to get away from this. Mention that that seller concessions were very popular not that long ago, and that they're not very popular now. So in general, they're not as prevalent in the marketplace, and not something that you'll generally be faced with. But again, I go and say, guys, your job and my job is to put the most net dollars in your pocket. So if you've got a really strong offer that wants some seller concessions and it's netting you the dollars that you want, let them win. Let them go ahead, but your agent will guide you through this. And just know, in general, seller concessions are not as common in the marketplace as they were. One thing, again, to keep in mind is that they have some friend who bought 3 or 4 years ago who says, hey, I got a great deal, and guess what? The seller, paid for all of my expenses. Look, here's all the things that typically the buyer is supposed to pay for, but I got the sellers to pay for it. So prepping them to say, hey, your buyer may be getting that information from a family friend. And so be prepared for it. Don't be offended by it. Just have a plan of attack to get your bottom line net dollar. Lisa will talk about this one. I don't spend a lot of time on this slide. I basically, when she's finished, I go, guys, what works on the outside works on the inside. You want simple, clean, remove as much clutter, depersonalize the house as best that you can. So you'll see. Lisa will talk about, clean lines, this, that, and the other thing. I just don't spend a lot of time. If you have other things to say, that's great, but I like to move through this slide relatively quickly and just say, hey, the inside is as important or more important than, having a basic, very clean, fresh, decluttered look on the inside. Lisa will hit this slide. Then you'll hit this slide, which is identifying the best real estate professional to list the home. And let me just make sure. I'm just going to check, Jeff. So this slide is slide 14. Just want to make sure I'm staying on track with which ones. Yep, that's right. So identifying the real estate professional. I talk to them and say, guys, it's equally important for you to consider what brokerage, and this is a really key point, Jeff, because I believe that our job in this presentation is not to differentiate ourselves from Coldwell Banker. And in fact, if we try to do that, it's just going to look wrong in that environment. What I'm trying to do is differentiate ourselves from the people that are not in that room. And I talk about the brokerage and say, guys, you're hiring two things. You're hiring a brokerage, and then you're hiring an agent that works for that brokerage. And they're two very distinct things. If the brokerage and the agent do not have knowledge in relocation, you're really putting yourself behind the 8 ball. There are tax implications to this. There's access that they don't have to other relocation buyers that you're missing out on. So I talk a lot about what does that company offer in terms of technology, follow-up, but then how well does the agent understand that technology, and are they demonstrating in their listing presentation with you that they can actually use that technology in a way that's going to sell your house? Talking about contract experience, and obviously say, once you get that whole list together, you're then going to have a gut feeling about that one person feels better to me than the other. And, ultimately you want to go with that gut feeling once you've qualified all of these other things. Make sure they have these list of qualities, then use your gut to figure out who's the best person at that point. Oh, and the last thing is that you can always point, if you're unsure, if you have questions, go back to your Cartus consultant, talk about what you heard, and they'll walk you through, and ultimately it's your decision, but they'll certainly talk to you about and try to help guide you with any questions that you have about what you heard. Okay, then the next slide that we're going to hit, Lisa obviously hits this slide. Next slide we're going to hit is slide 16, which really kind of starts going over what's in the listing agreement. This is one that I also keep very simple and say, guys, because you have such a great program through Cardis and through ExxonMobil, you really don't have a lot of the things to be worried about that other people that are listing without a relocation package have to worry about. Obviously, price is always going to be something that you want to feel very comfortable with. You're going to get a BMA from a company that has to demonstrate to you that they've been able to do that consistently and accurately. That gives you the baseline for how you're going to set your price, and it does it in a way that where you're not guessing. In terms of what the terms of the commission percentages are, that's all kind of taken care of for you by ExxonMobil, and it's usually one of the more important things that people are looking at. You don't have to worry about it, and the main reason you don't have to worry about it is something called the exclusion clause. And basically, any brokerage is going to have to sign this in order to represent you in this. And it basically says that at any time that Cardis wants to take over and make the current listing null and void, that they can. So you're signing a document with the power of Cardis behind you, and Cardis can come in. If Cardis ultimately has to take over the property for some reason it didn't sell, Cardis is going to make the current listing agreement null and void. They come in and they own it in inventory, and then they're going to sell it. And that's very protective of you in this relationship, that you have somebody that obviously is in the Cardis network, and if Cardis were to contact us, we'd either have to get something figured out or release the listing. And that's important for them to know. I kind of bumbled through that, Jeff. You may want to maybe think of your own words there, but basically you're setting up the strength again of working with a network broker. If you're with a network broker and they've signed this exclusion clause, they know exactly what it is. You're represented by more than just yourself. It's Cardis, ExxonMobil, and there's a relationship that requires us to perform. Obviously, we were chosen because we have a history of performing. Lisa hit slide 17. Slide 18 is really talking about, I talk about two things here. Number one, I mentioned that this is an old slide that Cardis has had in here. And notice 30, 60, and 90-day action plans. Well, if we have a 22-day average sale time, 30, 60, and 90 that's way too late. You need regular communication with your agent. You need, a weekly progress report. You need interaction on a regular basis. You have to discuss what the property's strengths and weaknesses are up front. You have to listen to any kind of advice or feedback that's coming from people that have seen it. I mentioned that, buyer profiles are a good idea. So for instance, if your house is truly like a great family home and you want to strengthen and put some of the things into the flyer that really accentuate how this could be a great family home, that's a good idea. But don't get stuck into the idea that you know who's going to buy your house. You may have a great family home and it may be a bachelor who buys it. You never know. And you don't want to have your marketing be so targeted that you're reducing the pool of whom it would be of interest to. You want to leave it wide open and certainly accentuate a few things that might be strengths to it, but try to stay away from that mentality because it can actually backfire on you and you'll miss buyers that would have been interested in your home because you thought it would be somebody different. Lisa then again hits this slide, which also just again talks about the Virtual Resource Center. Marketing update reports. So I've already set this up in the last slide, and I think that you just want to continue to really hit home on this, Jeff. I actually, a lot of times if we're running, I watch my timing of how we're doing. If we've done, really well in the presentation, but we're running a little behind, I just say, hey guys, I put this in here twice because it's the most important thing that you really can have, which is a great relationship, great communication with your agent. You really want to look at somebody who's highly organized up front and has demonstrated that, because that's who you're going to be working with and that's who you need to be talking to on a very regular basis once this thing hits the market. And then last slide that you hit is the fact that we're going to take a question and answer period. I've done the questions and answers with Lisa where we just predetermine that you'll take question number 1 and we'll take question number 2. That way we're not coming over the top of each other or, contradicting each other if we don't feel like the other person answered exactly the right way. Occasionally, if there's something really important, you might stick it, you might say, hey, and one other thought. But I just found that was the best way for us to not be competitive in terms of how the question and answer works. Hope this is helpful, Jeff.